2007, I was told of historical sightings of black panthers and caracal lynx at Savage Cat Farm, which is near Gillingham. Also, 8th of February, there was a sighting of a panther 22 inches at the shoulder on Salisbury Plain. 3rd of March, the landlord of the Bell at Charfield had a sighting of a dark feline-shaped panther-like Labrador-sized cat. March, there was a sighting at Starhead by a gamekeeper. This is interesting. There is actually, they set up trigger cameras in the woods there to try and film a big cat that's been seen in the woods. And I talked to a lady who, her house backs onto the copse, and her dogs have often sensed something in the woods and have barked regularly. In March, on the A4 between Box and Corsham, there were sightings of a big black panther. Also in March, there were sightings on Salisbury Plain of a black panther. Canal Road in Trowbridge, they actually got a photograph of a panther. It was with a mobile phone. There was much debate on the Wiltshire Times website about this sighting, and other sightings came forward. One suggested there was a farmer near Trowbridge who suggested that he had a cat coming into his yard, and he reckoned it was a tame cat that somebody let out at certain times, because it always came around the yard and it appeared to be very tame, it wasn't scared of people. In March, the 25th of March, 2 policemen and a civilian officer saw a big black cat near Harton Park, near Corsham, running across fields. A friend and I went up there, we walked up this valley, and we found it was a very wooded valley, and there were signs of military bunkers from the, because there were a lot of tunnels around Corsham, and there was a possibility that the cat might have been using one of the bunkers as a den. There was certainly lots of wildlife in the area, deer and rabbits, and so there was plenty of prey. Also, April, there were sightings Wooders Lane in Chippenham, which is called Beast of Biddiston. Canal Road, Trowbridge again, there was further sighting the 4th of May. In May, a couple were walking their dog in Battlesbury Woods, and the dog disturbed a large black leopard, like creature, which came rushing at them through the woods, through the undergrowth, growling. Now we think possibly it might have been a female leopard protecting its cubs. The reason being, several years ago there were previous sightings around that area. It's near some beagle kennels, and there were a number of witnesses who saw this big black cat around Battlesbury Woods, and we think possibly it may come back to the area to have its cubs. It was in the spring. That was in May. Berwick St John near Shaftesbury, there were 5 sightings of a large panther-type cat. 15 lambs were killed on a farm there. The lambs, though, Jonathan came, we skinned them, and they turned out to be, we think, by a dog as opposed to a cat. In June and July, there were sightings of a large black cat and a tortoiseshell cat around the village where we live, Crockerton. Several people saw it. Also in June, there were sightings of Castle Eaton, that's North Wilts. Also sightings also around Bishopsgrove, Warminster again, Battlesbury area. There was a sighting of a big cat in a crop circle in July, which sparked some interest. A teenager saw it in a crop circle, a big black panther. August there was sightings of Oldbourne on the Morber Downs. September there were sightings at Horningshaw on the A362, that was a lynx. There have been sightings of a lynx on Orchardley Golf Course near Frome, and also on around Dilton Marsh, and there have been several witnesses over the past year, well, going back a bit, there have been sightings. There were sightings up near Hull, Lavington and Malmesbury in October, 25th of October, of a panther-type cat. I think somebody got a photograph of that. It was mentioned in the local press. November there were sightings Chestnut Barn and Cold Ashton, which is down towards Bath, of a black cat. But definitely there have been a lot around Starhead, Salisbury Plain, and also the Morber Downs, all ideal cat habitat. You know, there are small copses and lots of woods, but mainly of black leopards, and also in some cases lynxes. There have been the odd puma sighting. Of course, there was a jungle cat killed a few years ago near Beckington. And there was also a Bengal cat run over near Swindon, although that turned out to be it wasn't a leopard cat, it was a Bengal cat. And that's really the sightings that have been in Wiltshire this year. I mean, those are the ones really out of the yearbook.
I'll just make a comment on that Bengal cat, because it was, first of all, the Swindon advertiser that announced it.
Yeah.
Thought it was, just put a big headline saying, "Is this the beast of Swindon?" Didn't know what it was, as they didn't know their sort of designer cats and weird, sort of just slightly larger than domestic cats. When the pub that it was closest by, the roadkill, was given as the phone number to phone if you thought you were the owner, they had, I think, 5 people claim it. So 5 people had a Bengal cat, had either released one or had one run off, within a few months in that area.
Yeah, 5 people thought, wow, we want to do.
Well, they knew it was dead. They knew it was dead.
They were check the thing. Check the thing.
Do you think it would be a good idea if you have like a situation where you get a leopard seen with cubs or a cat seen with cubs to have a trigger camera set up in the wood in the area, or is it to try and get a picture?
Well, that's what Steve Archbold in Oxfordshire, the investigator in Oxfordshire, is doing at the moment. He saw a puma with a juvenile about 3 weeks ago, and he drove across the next day to get my spare remote camera. And he luckily knew the farmer. It was a very good sighting. He was very clear about what it was. He saw the cat being mobbed by a lot of birds, a lot of commotion in the far corner. Got his binoculars out, and it was pretty sure it was a puma, or puma-type animal. And there was a younger, sort of third-sized, darker cat with him, which he thought was juvenile. And he gave up half of his next day to come and get my remote camera to put it up in that wood where it was, where he saw it.
But presumably you have to put them up within a fairly short space of time for them being seen, because I mean, how long would they stay in an area with the cub?
Depends how young the cub is, I suppose. That one was not just a kit; it was, obviously a young juvenile, so they might be moving on. But yeah, I guess that's the time when the cats are going to be most resident in an area, isn't it? When they've got a den site.
It's also worth mentioning Chris Johnson's sighting and photograph of a puma. He went to an area where he'd seen a puma and photographed the pile of fallen trees, and when he got, it was on his mobile phone actually, or digital camera, and when he zoomed in he realised he'd accidentally captured the head of a cub peeping over one of the fallen trees, which not many people seem to know about because he didn't advertise it, did he?
No.
As far as sorry?
Wasn't that on the email list?
Was it? I didn't know.
Yeah, he did. He brought those pictures to the conference last year. He mentions it in his article in the current yearbook.
It might work, we having that one. I think it was this year, one Marcus said near the Beagle Kennels, that I happened to have a small stick in my pocket, which I measured the footprint with. And this was the cat that had been seen twice within 3 months, and the second time there was a lot of hissing and spitting going on, and they sort of thickets, so we thought possibly a cat might have stayed around to have its young with the source of food. But the joke was I took the stick with me to the dairy show the next day in the Barton West Showground, and as I walked through the door of the stalls, the first stall was a taxidermist, and sitting on top was a puma. And I showed him the stick, and he measured the foot, with 1 foot out and one slightly relaxed up. And he said, yes, the dimensions fit in with this foot, and it's on a 15-month-old breeding puma, so whether puma's breeding 15 months, I don't know. But it's quite interesting, because it's coincidence. It could well have been that was static.
And also there's a situation down in Bath, front page in the Bath Chronicle, sheep killed on a farm on the edge of Bath. It was Coomdown Farm. It could there was a lot of interest in that at the time for the media.
Okay, any other questions, Marcus?
cat farm? Where does it get its name from?
Good question. Well, the lady who grew up there said that she thought, because there had always been sightings of large cats there. I mean, she known it quite a long time, and there had been sightings of both black leopard type cats and caracal type cat, lynx type cats on the farm over the years. But I mean, maybe it goes back to the days of wildcats long ago. I don't know. Well, as far as I know, it's been there quite a long time. I don't think it's a new farm. It's not new, is it? It's part of the Starhead estate.
But at the moment, we're investigating a series of sightings just across the border of Cornwall, at a place for 800 years has been known as Lion's Den. That's the way the universe works.
I call it Savage Cat.
John?
Sorry, he had his hand up first. Okay.
Well, as a cross-check on that, could I just mention, as some of you may know, the Ordnance Survey are now releasing Ordnance Survey maps from back to 1804 when they first started, and also they've published them from about 1914 to 1920. And I've been buying these for my own area for interest. And they're quite useful for checking whether names of farms or other places have changed spelling or changed name completely and so forth. In some cases I've found that in fact the name of a farm could move from one farm to an adjacent farm, oddly enough.
That's interesting.
Well, I was just going to say it's very odd that a lot of place names, farms are all related to cats. And there might be something else regarding the reason as to why they are so named, which is Lions Hill, Death Cat, Hollow, you know, there's places all over Britain of these names that relate to cats.
I know it's one about small farm cats, particularly nasty, that they are going on.
It's good.
I have to say, I found the amusing lexicons. It doesn't use it, that's the way the universe is.
I would caution you have to be careful sometimes, because you often find that the name of what's, a name today can appear to contain a word that we're familiar with. If you actually research it back a couple of hundred years, it started off as a different word that's been sort of verbally changed or misinterpreted.
As far as, I'll give you another one. As far as I know, there's only 5 spotted eagles ever either been seen or shot in Britain. 3 of them were shot in a place called Manhawk in Cornwall. It's just the way, this stuff happens like that.
From what I've read about Scottish wildcat, that's a lot of places have been named, roads, farms, hamlets and things have been named after that, particularly in northern England. So wildcat, major links wildcat certainly more recently.
And also, historically, for example, Tagran, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Celtic mythology, burning domestic cats to conjure up the giant cat in Scotland. That's a historical thing. Also, Pugel's cat was a large speckled cat which was seen on Anglesey, killed 180 Celtic warriors in a Welsh poem. And Geoffrey Ash in Arthurian Britain suggested it was a leopard on the way to a reef, off a ship on the way to a rich chieftain. And then there was the Mora Castle cat. There was a wandering sort of travelling wizard who had a cat which killed some of the castle occupants and animals in the area in the 1500s. That was eventually killed. And also, Merrily suggests the story in Somerville and Ross of the black cat killing poultry in County Cork, which the local folklore was that it came off a U-boat during the First World War. So, that's sort of it.
Yeah, right. Well, is that
Probably, yeah, I expect so. So, there are some of these older accounts. It is worth looking at some of the spectral sources. There are some accounts of historical cats, but they can be somewhat unusual. But that's really important.
Margaret, thank you very much.